What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff Lund, and this is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, where we are intolerant of weak-minded attitudes that keep people from pursuing new and exciting things in the areas of fitness, outdoors, and general lifestyle. Talking with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers board member for the Alaska chapter, Steve Shannon today. We've talked a couple times before about caribou and about hunting in Alaska, and so we're talking about Backcountry Hunters and Anglers and why it's important to be a part of an organization, because most elected officials do not look at social media, and they do not look at your Facebook to find information about what they should think, how they should vote, or how they should act. So we're talking about drawing tags, sharing information, prepping for hunts, excuses for new deer, and then most of the conversation is about being involved with organizations such as Backcountry Hunters and Anglers to have your voice heard, to show the diversity of Alaska and make sure that all regions of Alaska are covered in the discussion. And rather than just complain to people who know the issues, talk to people who have a bigger voice. So that is all coming up here in episode 79. Make sure you go to the mediocrealaskan.com for the content. And here we go with Steve. So went out cross-country skiing today. I got going into the Rockies in March, and I'm cross-country skiing back into to a yurt to stay for a couple days. So what do I need to know about this pending disaster? How bad is it going to be for me since I've never cross-country skied?
Oh, I'm not that guy. I am starting to learn also. So
well, perfect.
Yeah. You'll have to update me on how it goes. But yeah, my son started kindergarten at one of the charter schools here in Fairbanks, and they ski twice a week. And then during recess, they get the choice to either go out and run around, or they can use their skis and ski behind the school. And he's gotten pretty good. So we're all kind of learning this year together, so we can keep doing it as a family.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have your own skis and everything?
Yeah, we have. I don't know if they have anything like that in Ketchikan, but we've got some ski swaps early in the winter, and I managed to score a pair of used skis for like $50.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So
what about boots and all that stuff? Is that pretty inexpensive to start?
Yeah, I've just been keeping an eye on Craigslist. There's a guy last year I ended up buying some boots and bindings from, and then I stripped the bindings off the cheap skis I found this year, and just like Beaver Sports here in town took and put them on for like $15, I think, and off to the races.
Nice. My biggest thing too with the exercise portion of it is, you can be in really good shape, but the first time you put the pack on and your boots, you just get weird soreness because unless you practice with your pack and with the boots, you just get weird soreness. So I'm assuming that with this cross-country skiing thing, I'm going to be sore in weird places. What do you got on that? Should I be exercising hip flexors, or is there no point in trying to prevent soreness?
Oh, have you done a polk sled at all?
No.
So, I think it's PULK. And there's a couple of websites out there. If you just Google like DIY polk sled, you can find, I think with the skis, it's probably easier to pull behind than it is to have it on your back, because I think it changes putting enough weight on you changes the camber in the ski. That I do know, because I've asked about specifically when I took them into the shop here in town. I said, hey, what if I kill a caribou? And they were like, you definitely want to have a polk sled. You definitely want to be able to drag it behind you instead of try to put more weight on your back. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with really poor skiing performance with 100 pounds on your back. So
there's you're pushing to the outside, right? That's kind of or is it just like kind of straightforward, almost walking?
I've got the classic skis, so it's kind of like a weird drag your feet while you jog sensation. And then the other thing too is, I don't know if you have waxable or waxless skis. I was told because of the Fairbanks snow gets so dry and powdery that the scales, the waxless skis, don't work quite as well. So you should get waxable skis. And that's been like a crash course in failure of learning what my kick zone is and how far to putting, like, you've got the glide wax on the ends, and then in the middle where you want grip, you put on kick wax. And so that's been kind of there's a learning curve involved, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to psych myself out as much as possible. I like to have just know in my brain it's going to be really, really terrible. That way, if it's not as bad, then we're in good shape. If I tell myself, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be no big deal. Then if it does end up being disastrous, then can play games with the mind. So I'm assuming it's going to be, even though it's like, I think it's 3/4 of a mile. So it's not going to be very far.
Yeah, you got that. I mean, and the hardest part, I think, go ahead.
I'm just planning for disaster.
There you go. If you keep it under control, like on the downhill, that would be my only. The scariest stuff I've had cross country skiing was downhill, and don't drag a sled going downhill. You wanna adjust that. But yeah, 3/4 of a mile, you should be. That's shouldn't be too terrible.
So draws came out. Did you get what you were looking for?
I did.
Nice.
Do you want to start? I don't know. I don't want to be like, that's what I drew, and then you're like, I didn't get anything. Thanks for.
Well, I only put in for the mountain goat down here, and then I put in for a caribou up there, which was it was in the area that I'm going to go for the bow hunt moose. So that was just in case there was an opportunity to get a caribou, I'd have both tags. So I was really hoping for the mountain goat, but I don't. I'm kind of torn on how to approach that, because if you put in for the once in a lifetime tag, like the toque management area for goats or for sheep, what if you get it but can't go? So you have all these other things planned up, and so I'm not sure that. I don't know. I don't know if I want to keep putting in for those, because I've never put in for the toque tag. I don't put in for like the outside of the goat one down here. I haven't been putting in for the epic tags, knowing that I got the deer tags over the counter, got bear tags over the counter, and I've got the moose hunt that's over the counter coming up in August. So I was 0 for 1 pretty much, and I'm pretty sure I'm never going to get it. So I was not all that disappointed.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, we live in an amazing state that you can have world-class hunting opportunities on over-the-counter tags. So you're definitely not missing out on anything. I always felt that way. I drew, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago now. I drew an Edelin archery tag for elk, and it was the same year my wife qualified for nationals for powerlifting. And either we could afford to send her to Atlanta, or we could afford to send me to Edelin. And I was pretty smart and let her go to nationals, and she killed it. So I have no regrets about that. But I definitely know what it feels like to have the tag. It came in the mail. I was holding it in my hands, and you can't use it. So
yeah. Well, I used that tag and I didn't get anything, but it was kind of in that weird transition. I got the first 2 weeks of October, and October is usually pretty bad down here, but it was beautiful weather. But the 2 weeks prior to that had been really bad. So some buddies have said that you still hunt kind of in the alpine, you get flown in relatively high, and then you can kind of hunt, in those areas rather than try to hike in from the ocean. And so we got flown in, but the weather before we got there was pretty bad. So I think they all moved down. So we spent a ton of time walking around. It was beautiful weather, but it being just a week-long camp out. But that's a cool hunt for sure. But I didn't see anything. We saw one black bear, and that was about it. But at least the weather was good and everything. But what about like sharing with people what units you get? Because the more you kind of advertise what it is, the more likely people might put in for it. If they don't know about this amazing tag that is kind of a slam dunk if you get it. The more that you talk about it, the more people end up applying for it, and then it decreases the odds. What about, before you tell me which tag you got, how do you feel about sharing the exact details of it?
Oh, for me, I'll just tell you, I just did the Delta Controlled Use Area sheep tag. And this year I was on kind of a limited budget, so I put in for that in moose, an area that would have been 50 inches or bigger. I put in for like any bull moose tag, and those are the only two ones I put in for. And I drew the sheep tag, and actually, how you can go in and you can look up anybody's name. So I look up, the 10 or 15 guys that I know that we all kind of hunt together and keep up with one another on who's got what tags. So you always look up other people's names. So, you can, I don't know if it's cheating, but you can cheat and look up other people's names and see what tags they're putting in for. I should go on record. I don't endorse sniping other people's input with that way, but I know it gets done that way. But yeah, no, it's actually, I had 4 guys reach out to me within the first hour that the results were up and say, hey, I had that tag. Oh yeah, I have a buddy that did it last year, and it's just an awesome story. He hunted it with his dad, and they shot a monster ram in there. Another guy, put in a ton of work, kind of one of those, made a couple 4-day weekends instead of a really long shot at it. And he took a ram out of there. So all of them were very willing. I think with a limited tag like that, you're only going to get it so many times. It might be once, it might be twice, but everybody that I know that's had it has already contacted me and said, hey, let's get a beer and we'll sit over some maps and I'll point exactly where I killed one or where I saw them. And they've been super generous with the tags.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I can see that. I was reading Steve Ranello's American Buffalo book, and he was talking about the buffalo tag that he drew, and is talking about the rivers and talking about the unit and talking about everything, because it's a once in a lifetime draw, and it's not. I mean, he might as well talk about it. And so I was reading that, and I was looking at onX Maps, and I was just finding kind of the region where he was, just kind of check it out. And then this morning when I woke up, or a little bit after I woke up, I was looking through Instagram, and someone from down south had screenshotted a picture of their onX map. And you have the people who, when they see your post, if it's with a bear, if it's with something, they say, oh, I know where that spot is. And you're like, dude, why are you making it about you, right? I mean, just say, hey, congrats. Then you have the people who are like, hey, man, congratulations, that's a great looking buck or elk or whatever. And is that, here? And then you can say, yeah, it is, or do the little winky face thing. But the people who just make it about themselves and say, I know where that is, with nothing else, it's crazy. But anyway, so I'm looking at this picture and I'm like, dude, that kind of looks familiar, which is crazy, because you look at Alaska on onX Maps, how are you going to find this little square spot? But it was really close to spots where I'd just been kind of looking. I'd started at where Ranello was talking about for his bison, and I just started kind of scrolling through, looking at the mountains and whatnot. And it was like the exact spot that this person had screenshot and put on Instagram, even though like he'd taken out the coordinates and he'd taken out the location and the management unit. It was crazy that, like, needle in the haystack, man, I didn't know exactly where that is. So I was
nice.
My impression was like, I know where that is. And like, okay, that's the exact type of guy that you don't like to talk about.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the same map. I did not know where it was, but I think I know what you're talking about.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So what about your prep, man? What's going to be your game plan for this thing?
Daydream about it pretty much all the time. Be completely unproductive for the next 7 months, and then drop all other priorities. My wife's it's been like 48 hours, and my wife's already like, this is gonna be a long 7 months, isn't it? You're just like, I can write you a letter of apology now. It is gonna be long, because this is, for me, the first time I'll go specifically like sheep tag and nothing else. I've gone caribou hunting in areas where you keep a sheep tag in your pocket. There are, the caribou are up high, so there's always a shot. But this will be the first one that's like strictly sheep or nothing. So pouring over, or like already starting to look over maps and look over harvest results and things like that. Fish and Game's got a lot of good info on their website. So yeah, it's distracting. My wife, I don't know why I asked so early, but in January, I think I was planning on buying her a rifle for her birthday. And her birthday's in March, the end of March. And I asked her, I said, what do you want to do? What do you want for your birthday? And usually she says nothing, or I don't know. And that is my go ahead to buy whatever I want. And this year she looked at me and she just went, abs. I want abs for my birthday. So I want you to do a 90-day nutrition plan and exercise plan with me. And so we're 6 weeks into we use these like nutrition templates from Renaissance Periodization. They're under like RP Diet, I think is what their Instagram is. And we both are getting there, man. Like good exercise, really honing the edge of the knife on nutrition, on eating habits. I started like carrying that stuff into my PE classes that I teach, where I was like, guys, I thought I ate really well, because everyone thinks like, oh yeah, I'm doing fine. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the pantry and just stood there, even though it wasn't my scheduled time to eat. And I was like, going to just grab the, if you've got kids, it's like you buy those like little cheddar rabbits or cheddar crackers. I look, a serving size is seven crackers, and my handfuls are like 3 or 4 serving sizes. So playing out how many extra calories I was taking in and not using and things like that. So I feel like I've got a pretty good lock on starting off with, nutrition. And so I don't have to lose 30 pounds by sheep season. I don't feel like once the weather gets a little nicer, like stepping up skiing, stepping up the running and things like that. But I feel like a pretty good there. And then looking at my gear, I just 2 weeks ago pulled up all the Rubbermaid action packers and kind of did a quick look through of all the gear I've got. And there's a couple pieces I'd like to get a nicer spotter, better spotting scope, and I'd like to get some puffy pants. And I feel like that's pretty much round out what I've got. I just got a new bag. I like the boots I've got. I had 3 or 4 guys go, "Oh, it's an awesome excuse to get a new rifle." But I like my rifle a lot, and I like my optics, and so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that I did when my buddy proposed this moose bow hunt. I thought, well, shoot, man, it's a moose with a bow is a pretty huge thing, but August is the only real time that I can go before school, and go before the hunt, and we can get up there and we can spend the whole week there, and we can really do it right rather than try to take off time during school and hurry up there and hope that there's, a window during rifle season. So first thing I did was, well, I'm buying a new bow. I'm buying the not top of the line, but upper medium or lower upper, whatever thing, buy a new bow. Because there's just that, especially with the bow, I found that it's easier to convince myself that it's really important that I make a perfect shot. Like the technology of the bow that I had would have probably been like top of the line 10 years ago when people were taking, big animals with bows. But now that there's something else out there, it was really easy for me to find an excuse to buy something new. But I got a puffy jacket, which I really like. And so I've been kind of looking at that puffy pant thing too. You get up top and you stop hiking, you start to get a little chilly in the breeze. But
yeah, that was, I think, one of the best pieces of advice. I think of the people who sort of unknowingly mentored me in hunting in Alaska. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was, we're talking specifically about bows, but he said, pretend you are full draw on the biggest caribou bull you've ever seen in your life. Now, are you 100% confident in your setup that you're going to kill that bull at, 40, 50 yards? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't have the setup you have, or you need to add something different. And if the answer is yes, then don't worry about spending more money on that. Spend it on some other place you don't feel 100% confident.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, that if you're with other people, and I've learned that I didn't grow up hunting, and so just a lot of new stuff still coming at me. I do a lot of stuff solo, but there's just a lot of different things and dynamics, and you look at how important it is that you're not putting the people who are with you at a disadvantage. If you're out of shape, then you're making the people who are with you suffer.
Yeah.
If you get off the mountain with what you have there, or you put on a bad shot, and we're going to be in brown bear territory, and so the last thing we want to do is have to track a wounded moose too far. And so it's not just get the moose, it's let's do it efficiently. Let's make sure that I'm not putting my buddies that are coming with me at a disadvantage or in harm's way. And one of the buddies that's going to come with me, I was like, dude, bring your bow. Absolutely. You get one too, it's over the counter. And I was planning on just shooting the bottom side of the legal. It's just the fork spike.
Yep.
And then, or 3 brow tines or bigger. And he said, yeah, I'm just looking for a spike. I was like, no, dude, you're supposed to be the one, because he has more experience. I was counting on that. That was going to be our deciding factor, right? If it had 3 brow tines, it's his. If it was a little guy, it was mine. But he was like, dude, those moose are huge. I'm like, well, yeah.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
But it was going to be easy. You shoot the big ones, I shoot the small one. So we'll have to figure that out, but we got 7 months or 6 months to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah, I drew the sheep hunt as a party with a friend of mine that I teach with, and I don't know if we're going to draw straws or fist fight or how we're going to decide, but I feel like we need to do that before we find sheep. So
yeah, but getting along with people, that's the hunting buddy is such an important thing. The person that you can trust I like being on the lower end of that. I know what I'm capable of, and so I'm not worried about putting someone else or having to take care of someone else. Because again, as a relatively new hunter, I want to take care of myself, and putting someone else's life in my hands. I don't know about that at this juncture, but
yep, you should apply the same mindset to marriage too. Like just hunting partner up, marry up. Whatever you can do to make sure that you're the weakest link, because you can hold your own. As long as you're the weakest link, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently dating out of my league right now, so I think I'm good so far.
Really, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, that's good.
I was doing the math. For some reason today I was doing the math. I'll be 34 in June, and that means that it'll be exactly half of my life I was dating or married to my wife. So I'm pretty, yeah. Feel like I, same thing. Started dating out of my league, got married way before she knew I was far below her league. So that's the way to do it.
It's charm, man. Something about the charm.
What is that red green? If the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. I don't know if I'm really either one of those things. So sometimes you just get lucky.
Doesn't matter the reason, as long as there is a reason, right?
Exactly.
So. As far as getting along with people, I think it's a good segue to BHA, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and relatively new to. I've been a member for a year, and the first thing that kind of attracted me to it was you have Ducks Unlimited, you have Trout Unlimited, but it seemed like we're pretty independent, fighting for kind of the same things. Whereas Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, nationwide, really. Outspoken advocates, public figures, large people that were speaking on behalf of it, and then nationwide. So definitely some power and some grit and some weight behind it. But why did you get involved, and what would kind of be the pitch for people to get involved?
Yeah, so I got involved. I think 4 years ago now. I got involved with our state chapter, and a big part of it was growing up in the Midwest. It sounds like we had similar childhoods in that, heavy on sports, but not a whole lot of hunting. And when I did start in college, it was a lot of asking permission from people. I went to school in Iowa, and so turkey season or pheasant season, those were like really good entry points for getting into hunting. Being able to, before class on a Tuesday, get up, be out in the field at 5 a.m., try to call in a turkey, doesn't work, pull the stakes and go back to class at 11 or something like that. It wasn't this huge foray into the wilderness. But I do remember right after Easter, we'd go out and buy like the dollar bags of candy and then just drive down country roads and find farmers that were out in their field and say, hey, if you need a hand, here's a bag of Kit Kats. And if you need help baling hay, or if you need help fixing fences, or, putting in posts, let us know. We'd like to come out and hunt turkeys, or in the fall, it would be, we'd like to come out and shoot some pheasants if you've got a weekend that isn't taken up by other guys. And as much as that helped me learn about treating something like it's not mine, I think that it just made me frustrated, in that I got a lot of no's before I ever got any yeses. Guys that live there had, developed relationships over years of working with these guys, working with farmers to be able to go out and do that. And I was starting way behind the 8 ball. So coming to Alaska and seeing what we had here, that you can literally pull over someplace and just walk in, is a huge advantage. And we've got the beautiful burden of protecting that, as opposed to trying to regain it like they're doing in a lot of places in the lower 48, where they're worried about checkerboarding in the western states, or in the eastern states there's the what do they call them, the blue laws, I think it is, where you can't hunt on Sundays. What I mean? Like, I think that those are things that we don't have that stuff here. And BHA in Alaska functions a little bit differently than it does in a lot of the other places, both because we're just so much bigger. We do have so much public land. It takes convincing sometimes to tell people we have this. We need to be involved in the process so we don't lose it. We don't lose access, and we don't lose. I'll just jump into it. Like, with the way that things are going in our state right now, with the way things are going on a federal level, everything's very much like, let's develop it while we can. Like, we sort of the all lights are green on development. Like, let's get the wheels turning on this thing. And we have to look at that and kind of measure it against what is the real cost. Can we develop in a responsible enough way to make sure that the things that we all love the most about Alaska, the big, big wilderness, the ability to be places where literally you will not see people for weeks, those places just don't exist on the earth anymore, Yeah. And then to balance that with a lot of our Alaskan beliefs of, like, we are a natural resource state and development is what pays the bills, to try to find some sort of sweet spot of there. I feel like it's my job in BHA to kind of make people on both sides satisfied and upset. Like, if I'm hitting that middle ground, I feel like I'm in the right spot. And I feel like we do that as a nonprofit group. What I think I want us to do, my pitch for BHA would be that I want our chapter to be the go-between, to be that sort of vehicle between managing agencies and the public. I'm sure you saw on Facebook and social media, Governor Dunleavy just put out his proposed budget, and just, doesn't matter where you're from in the state, lots of people are upset about it and they're posting about it on social media. But how do you drive home the point of, that's not being involved in the process? Like, griping and complaining and leaving negative comments, or arguing in the comment section of the news article with somebody who you have no idea who they are. Those things don't solve problems. The governor and his staff are not on there reading people's comments about it. You need to be involved in the process. And what I want our chapter to do is plug people into that. And that way, whether you're pro or con, whatever the issue is, like, how to go about doing it in a way that gets your voice heard. And that's what I'm really passionate about BHA doing. I hope that wasn't too much word Paul. No, you got that.
That's great. I think that the big thing there, you said that, these elected officials, they don't read Facebook. I was going to say, like, no elected official reads social media, but then our president is an advocate for the use of Twitter. But we have our circle of influence, and the people that we're influencing are people who pretty much already agree with us. So it's really not really going anywhere. And so being a part of an organization that has a voice and has some weight behind it is really important, more than just getting likes from people who already agree with your worldview. So that was the thing that attracted me to it. And I also like what you said about the difference between, like, the lower 48 and here. whereas we don't have to. We're not looking for looking to regain things. We need to protect things. And I finished reading a book called Cod about how the on the East Coast, cod was such an important fish to Europe, to the early United States and the colonies, and everything was so unbelievably important. But once the trawlers were invented and just were so efficient at wiping out the resource, that it makes a huge difference. And then they're to the point now where it went way past the tipping point. And so you wonder where we're at with some of these tipping points in Alaska, and with the fisheries, and with the trawlers, and with what's happening to some of these fish, and we're who knows where all that's going to go in the future. And so being a part of an organization that's going to be looking at this now before it gets to that point where we're out of the resource, I think is really important. But what do you got on the fishing side as far as Intel? I know that you're in Fairbanks, but what can BHA do for fishermen, commercial and sport fishermen and charter fishermen?
Yeah, right now we're looking at a couple things nationally in terms of what are all of our chapters, whether it's Alaska, British Columbia, Oregon, California, Washington. What are we seeing in terms of salmon returns and steelhead returns? And, how can we engage in some of those issues as well? Because we do get a lot of time on big game, and what we do want to enhance is our ability to address those issues. What's good is I think we're getting noticed by some of the managing agencies as a group that represents sport fishermen, personal use guys, people that want to just go feed their families, and kind of a middle ground or common sense ground of how does everybody, we can't win everything, right? Like nobody gets everything they want. And I think that was another big piece of what attracted me to BHA was after I became a member, I liked it. I got my PFD. I became a lifetime member, and I got a call from Lan Tawney, who's the chair of BHA National, and he and I were talking about some things, and we're at a point in our, politics and lifestyle choices that compromise is like weakness. It gets associated with like, oh man, that guy gave in. He wasn't able to work out getting his way all the time, and that just wasn't our goal, right? That was never what we were all set up to be. That's not the way the system works. We don't get everything we want. Like it's like being married. If I got everything I want, my marriage wouldn't last that long. And if I gave up everything all the time, my marriage wouldn't last that long. And I think that's what, other agencies are recognizing is that there's some common sense there. We've got to push to be focused on what does the science say? What are the experts in these areas saying about resources? And then how can we go about making it so that it's not just my resource, it's my sons and my grandsons. So in terms of like fishermen and things like that, we're looking at starting I'm trying to word this correctly, but getting deeper in on those issues. So if somebody's listening and they're a commercial fisherman and they have something to say about it, Alaska at backcountryhunters.org. I mean, let us know. What are the things that you want us to touch on? We have some people that are biologists or former biologists that are helping out with formatting and forming some of the ways that we're going to deal with upcoming issues and how we engage on those things. But yeah, if someone's listening and has, this is the thing that's standing out and this is the thing that we need to work on, I'm all ears. We meet as a board monthly. We just finished up our big annual planning meeting for 2019. So, show up to a pint night. We've got some stuff going on in Southeast now. We have South Central, and then we're working on an interior, forming these regional advisory teams that are listening to locals. It's stemmed out of even before me, people national saying, hey, what's going on the Tongass? And it's like, oh, that's like me, living in Montana, commenting on something down in Alabama, The distance is that far. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten because it's all in Alaska. It's all in the state. So, sorry I don't have a more a more defined response to that, but I feel like that's where I'm at personally. I fish a little bit to fill in the times that I'm not trying to hunt something.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about Alaska. It is so big and so diverse that, there's the different regions are way different. And if you look, for Southeast Alaska, one of the big things that we've talked about is logging and wolves. And I know you have some wolf control issues up there, but um, anti-hunters and pro-wolf types, they have organized themselves in such a way that they are commenting and they get so much money donated because they're viewing the wolf situation from their down south perspective. And so when they think wolves, they think that they are saving Alaska from the same plight that they experienced or are currently experiencing. And those sort of issues we have to have the same sort of organization, just so the issue is explained and is articulated well, so that the people speaking on behalf of the wolves aren't the people who don't really know what's going on. And I think we take for granted as Alaskans that things are wild and things are so much better that we don't have to have a conversation going and have, I wouldn't want to say like an army or anything like that, but at least a group of people who is going to speak on behalf of Alaska's best interests in those locations and have the discussion based on firsthand accounts rather than just but what's put out there by whatever organization that's just giving you a fraction of the actual facts and doesn't really know what's going on. So,
yeah,
and I go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say to piggyback on that. I think that's a big part of it is having a group that's engaged in the conversation. When I was looking at pictures the other day with the Yukon Quest going and the Iditarod getting ready. Is it bus advertisements down in Anchorage were like sled dogs that were chained up and looked like they were freezing, and it was like stop the Iditarod, and they were all sponsored by PETA. Yeah. And I think that that's a big part of it is engaging in that conversation. And we can't only have the people that have the bumper sticker like wolves smoke a pack a day. Like they tend to be the most vocal ones. And that doesn't help the issue at all. You know what I mean? Like those are the people that get the light because that makes it so easy to paint predator management in the light of like, it's just a bunch of, old dudes that want to shoot wolves all day. And it's, it's sometimes we shoot our own selves in the foot trying to argue with people that we're never going to convince, why waste the breath on a lot of those people? Sorry, my phone's going off here. Yeah. Why waste your breath on a lot of the people that you're never going to convince when, I was talking with a friend of mine, there's probably slightly less vehement anti-hunters than there are hunters. And the remaining 85% of the population are in the middle somewhere, somewhere along that spectrum between they don't do it, but they don't really mind that it happens versus I don't do it. I don't really think shooting things is great, but I also understand my meat comes from somewhere, those are the people that we need to be engaging with. And then we need to be having our story told by people that are doing it the right way. I'm just going to say it that way. Yeah, because there is a wrong way to do it. There is, Go ahead.
I grew up fishing, and just the ethic and everything that involves fishing is much different. So with hunting, I've found that it's not just about you go to the river and it's you and the fish and how you ever treat the fish. If you go to there and you're catching a silver and you catch your silver, you catch your you get your limit of 6, then you go home. But with hunting, it's so much different. I've found that it's just as much how you portray it and represent it as the experience itself. Like what you're saying with the ammunition that you give anti-hunting groups, and just how important it is to represent it in a reverent sort of way. I was listening to, I can't remember what podcast it was, but Remy Warren was talking about how when PETA did that Facebook filter where you could shoot animals.
Yeah. Yep.
And he made the comment. I don't know if he was saying it was purposeful, but even if it wasn't purposeful, like how many people were recruited to PETA's cause because so many hunters posed with that filter in a dead animal? And so like like you're saying, that 85% of people are on the edges who weren't really sure. They see that, they're attacking PETA and these people, wow, that's not ethical whatsoever. And so if this organization stands for the ethical treatment of animals, and these people clearly aren't treating animals ethically because they're using this filter to openly mock, how many people were then moved to either join PETA or be more sympathetic to PETA or give them money? And I thought, man, that's crazy. I just didn't, I second guess so much of or not second guess, but just think about the conduct and going forward and how it's really important. If this is something that I deem to be necessary, and I enjoy, how I talk about it and how I represent it is really important, because I could totally be doing harm to the whole program by, who knows, people can take stuff out of context. So I've been so much more conscious about how I represent it going forward.
Yeah, I think there's it was Shane Mahoney. I was listening to a podcast with he's a Canadian conservationist. He was talking about how hunting will not become undone. Like, we will not end. We won't be undone by the anti-hunting crowd. We will be undone because we've made ourselves irrelevant. People don't see a function. People don't see an advantage. People don't see a value in hunting anymore. And because of that, hunting numbers will dwindle and dwindle, and it'll eventually just go away. It's not that it's going to be some outside force that cuts everything off. We need to pay attention to those things. We need to be alert and engage on those things, but that's not going to be how it ends. And I feel like I feel like he's right in a way that we need to portray it honestly, and also for what it is and how we get to do it. I think we've got a group of people now that are writers and hunters, and I feel like that harkens back into sort of like the warrior poet style of people, whether it's guys or gals, that can have these incredible experiences and then have the vocabulary and the writing style to put it to paper and then put it on the internet or put it in a magazine with incredible pictures and capture as best you can those kinds of experiences to be shared with other people. And like, sometimes it doesn't go according to plan, and sometimes you put on a bad shot and you learn about these things that in the game of life and death, as much as I would like to be the one that always takes home exactly what I shoot with one shot and it's immediately over, like, real life just doesn't work like that sometimes, and you do the best you can with what you have, and nature doesn't work like that sometimes. So I feel like, how do we tell the story that this is an incredibly important thing that links us not just to a food source, but to where we come from as humans, as a species, and what the value of nature has when you go out into these places. And I think it was, there's a book I've got at home called Bloodsport, Honest Essays. What is it? It's called The Hunter's Heart, Honest Essays on Bloodsport. And it's edited by this guy, David Peterson. He's got a couple of books out. One of them's called Man Made of Elk, which I like a lot. But he's got this compilation of essays. And I think the one I'm thinking of is actually from President Jimmy Carter. And he says, when hunters are talking with non-hunters, is like, they always like, oh man, it's like trying to explain sex to a eunuch. And I've always thought that's a terrible way to start that conversation with, like, well, you know what, you're kind of like this, you're like a guy that's been castrated. So let me try to break this down for you as best I can. And he said, like, and he goes into that analogy and he says, you know what? It's not like that. It is like, when people tell you, oh, well, why don't you just go shoot them with a camera, shoot them with film. And he says the reason being is, like, it's one thing to take a camera into nature and take those pictures and be a part of it that way. It's kind of like if you were to buy tickets and then go to a play and watch these actors on a stage play out their parts. But he said going in with my bow or with my rifle is like becoming an actor in this play. In that, like, I've taken a role in this natural theater that's happening. And then I enter into it as I rightfully should to play a part, you know? And I thought that was such a great way to kind of explain that. And then that really is like when you're not there in sort of the tooth and fang, something dies in order for something else to live part of it, you're really not experiencing it at its full depth.
Yeah. 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 The new anti-hunting thing, that it's not just ethical, that it's been like it's no longer socially acceptable. And that's an interesting thing. Like the modern masculinity, if you're a dude, you know, if you want to be the old last century, you know, that you're an outdated model. You know, the man 2.0 or male in this modern society, contemporary society, doesn't have to show his aggressiveness by hunting. And that's an interesting, it'll be interesting to see how that goes going forward, if that's a new way of packaging, or if that's going to be the new packaging on the anti-hunting type thing, rather than just, we don't like killing animals, it's bad to kill animals. If it's going to be, you're an outdated person, you know, as a male, we're gonna erode at that, and anything that you champion as far as being the person who goes out and doesn't outsource the killing to something else, doesn't, you know, pay someone else to do the raising and the killing and the shipping and the cutting. I'm really curious to see how that goes. Hopefully it doesn't, you know, hopefully we can appreciate that other people live different ways, and in certain areas, especially in Alaska, it's a way of life. You know, like there are people who misrepresent it in, you know, urban settings that go out there and you know, you don't necessarily have to, or the trophy hunts, but even the trophy hunts, you know, like that guy paid however tens of thousands of dollars to go shoot that. Was it someone in Afghanistan or something like that? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, just a little bit. I saw some pictures and kind of read the headline.
You know, it's a complex thing, and there's so many people put so much money forth, and that money then goes to the survival of the species. I don't want to go to Africa. I have no longing to go to Africa and shooting those animals, but those game hunting safaris, they bring a lot of money to the communities, and it's just so complex. And hopefully that there's an appreciation for it, and going forward, people can understand that, and we can get along, and we can, you know, have discussions about these sort of things, and the pros and the cons, and the weirdness, and the, yeah, you know, I went out there and I put a bad shot on something, or, you know, I just hope that there can be conversations going forward. And that's to bring it back to BHA. That's one of the reasons that I want to be involved in that, is be involved in the conversation, and rather than just spin my wheels on Instagram or on Facebook, to do something that helps preserve the resource, and makes the conversation a conversation rather than just me versus you.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big part of, like I saw some, to monkey, like piggyback off of what you're talking about, looking at news articles, I saw a few things come out as like, what was the one I read the other day? I was like, oh, the modern day hunter, like making food the center of it all, or something like that. And I was like, like just the modern day guys. It wasn't like the dudes with stone points and spears they were just, you know, we're out there doing it for fun, you know. Yeah. I get where I think like hot cuisine has sort of become like the cool new thing, and I'm 100% into that. Like my wife got me a sous vide for Christmas. Nice. Oh my god, the thing's amazing. But you know, knowing what you can do, like my older brother, all I remember him doing with white-tailed deer was like there was some steaks and there was burger, you know, and then it was like like finding all these things like ossobuco and stuff that you can do with shanks, that it doesn't have to be all burger meat, or like front shoulders can be, you know, blade in roasts and all. I mean, sky's the limit. And I feel like there's been some great guy, like, you know, you mentioned Steve Rinella, Hank Shaw is another guy that comes to mind, that are like really blowing up what you can do, you know, nose to tail cooking using like liver and heart. And I saw a recipe the other day for kidneys. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, but the whole, just everything. And how do you make an argument against that is really what it comes down to for me. Like when someone says, oh, you're trophy hunting. Oh, absolutely. I've got caribou antlers on my wall. I've got 3 years ago when I went to Southeast, I have black-tailed deer antlers with a picture of me and my buddy John that went with me on there. Absolutely. Like I put that on my wall and I think of what I did with my brother to get those caribou antlers and the trip to Southeast to get those deer antlers. And I'm hoping to have, I hope it's not bad karma to say it, but I'm hoping to have, ram horns up there. My wife doesn't know it, but I think I'm going to, with any luck, have a very large taxidermy bill. Shh, don't tell her.
Yeah.
But like, absolutely, like that encapsulates so much. But I also took all of that meat out, and I took the heart, and I took the liver, and what's that episode of Meat Eater where they're sitting there boiling the mule deer tongue? Yeah. I bet you 1,000% increase in tongues have been coming out of the field than what was before. When you put that out there, how do you take someone that you can at least engage in the conversation when you say, no, I take every bit that I can. Want to come over for tongue? I took the tongue out. You want to come over for heart? I took the heart out, and putting that with people, it's a hard argument to fight against.
Yeah. And if you don't know it, or you don't hear about it, you don't know about it. So, people are, if it's not widely known that, yeah, this is something that you should do. This is the type of hunter that you want to be, and these are the types of things that they do, and they take out the tongue. And like I think in that episode, he hung all the meat except for the tongue, and the tongue is what he brought back for dinner that night. Yep. But if you don't hear about it, you don't think to do it. You don't get a deer down and think, the most commonly talked about thing is how good the backstrap is, and so you just think backstrap. If you don't know any better, that's like the main part, and you take the rest of the meat and but you don't care as much. The backstrap's the best part, and so you do your diligence and get the rest. But taking out I ate heart out of the one deer that I got last year, and it was awesome. I brought some onions specifically for that. So when we got back to camp and had some onions and the heart, and yeah, it just felt right. But again, unless you hear about it, you don't think to do it. So those people who have those good voices that are out there that are now exposing so many more people to different ways to honor the animal and to just new, unique foods. And it goes back to, it's totally not, well, it's somewhat comparable, but one of the reasons that the Native Americans were, their view of hunting and how it's seen as the proper way to do is they didn't waste anything. You had the North Alaskans that were using the whale bones for part of their homes and their structures, and then eating everything eating the curdled milk in calf buffalo, the Plains Indians. And so it was crazy to think. I was reading a book, The Empire, the Summer Moon, and they're talking about that was one of the delicacies because you don't have candy and stuff. You just have they would eat the milk out of the stomachs, the curdled milk out of stomachs. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. But just what they did, and it's not a big deal. It just is. And I don't know if I'd go that far, but in our contemporary society, the equivalency might be that let's use all of it. Let's find different ways to cook it and expose other people to the type of hunter that we want representing the art or the craft or the hobby lifestyle of it.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, hunger is a powerful seasoning, right? I think that if meals might be few and far between, it encourages you to reach out and try new things, including the curdled milk in the stomach of calves.
Yeah. Well, what else you got, man? We're coming up on an hour here. I know you got it's Sunday evening, so might want to a little bit of time with the fam. So you got some closing thoughts here?
Sure. Yeah, I think that to circle back, reach out. We're getting more active on social media, and we're going to start sending out some things more kind of regionally focused in terms of BHA and involvement. There's some stuff going down. Pebble Mine is not dead yet. There's some stuff going on in the Tongass with the roadless rule, and we've got a board member down in Gustavus. We've got a group of board members in Anchorage and in Wasilla. There's a group of us here in Fairbanks. We're definitely looking to engage on a more local level. I'm not even going to try to do it all from my house or try to fly around and catch up with everybody. So we have, we're working to put a structure in place for these regional advisory teams to be the key in for local involvement. So if you're down in Southeast, I can hook you up with Larry and Gustavus. I can hook you up with Brian and Herb and some great people in Anchorage. And, be involved in the process is the biggest part. Whether you don't have to 100% go with what we're doing. BHA, I think sometimes gets wrapped up with people thinking that it's like, oh, whatever federal management is, that's the perfect way to do it. That's what they're thinking. That's what they're about. We're looking to get people involved in the process. And if that means you disagree with a stance that we take on something, that's fine. Your voice is it counts just as much as mine. So to be involved in that is a huge part. And that's what we want people to do. So if they got questions, if they want to be involved, we're on Facebook. We've got a Facebook group. We're on Instagram. I think it's BHA_Alaska. And then Alaska@backcountryhunters.org is the email. So yeah, be involved because unfortunately good things don't stay around unless you get involved to protect them.
Yes. Good closer, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time, and congratulations on the draw there.
Yeah. I've got a lot of daydreaming and a lot of work to do in the meantime.
Perfect. All right, man. Thanks again, and take care.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Have a good one.
You too.